And we're live. Welcome to the All Balls No Filter podcast, live from the cabin kitchen. I'm Zach. He's Brad.
Hey guys.
And behind the scenes, we don't have anybody today, actually, because due to the recent controversy with Carl's conundrums, he's been loaned out to Tenerife for a few days. Carl's not here. Researcher Carl is sunning it up somewhere in Tenerife. So it's just me and you today, mate.
I mean, it is. I mean, rumour has it with the way that Cal's conundrums have gone, he's probably in Ninerife, getting those fucking names wrong and stuff. But Jesus.
Yeah. Don't worry, guys. We've had a word with him. He's going to be researching Researcher Cal's job title a little bit more, I think, going forward, eh? But look,
if he's not, I think we might be. But
yeah, exactly that. How you been, mate? Anyway, you all right?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm grand, but I know you're not. It's been a rough one for you.
Yeah, I am not in a great place. So if I don't sound as energetic as normal, guys, I have just not been very well. I'm not gonna lie, I've lived under a rock for the past 4 or 5 days, just being poorly. The whole house has got it. It's not been great. So I apologise if today I'm just gonna wing it. I'm not gonna lie, mate.
I mean, for those that sort of are religious with the day release and things, obviously you'll know we normally release on a Wednesday. We're actually recording and filming this on a Wednesday. We're a day behind because Zach had his knickers in a twist and was too poorly to record. So we've delayed by 24 hours. But it's probably done us a favour, really, hasn't it? Because actually, the last 24 hours has been pretty interesting in the world of the NFL.
Yeah, I did it on purpose. Purely did it on purpose because I knew that there was going to be more and more storylines coming out, not because I had the worst case of man flu known to man. But hey, look, you got to feel sorry for me. I had man flu, right? But that being said, mate.
Absolutely.
That being said, mate, what we got in store for today's episode?
Yeah, so it's obviously been a busy old start to the week for trades and free agency. So we'll hit on the biggest stories of them all. And we'll try and get you up to speed with what this means for the teams, obviously, around the league with the signings they're making or the players they're losing. We'll have our new weekly rugby league focused segment, I Can't Speyk. And we will visit 11 Reef and all other balls. And, of course, check in on Cal's conundrum all the way from his jolly little holidays. So hopefully he's got it right this week because... he's dropped the ball a couple of times.
Just a little bit, yeah, just a little bit. He, we'll have to see. He's on a fine line for getting his P45 through the post. I think I must admit. But
we can see how today goes without him, can't we? We'll see how it goes without him, and then just decide whether he's earning his keep or not.
A little tester, eh? A little tester. Right, let's get into some of the big news from this week, mate, because there's been quite a fair bit of it as well, right? So we're talking trades, we're talking free agency, and we're talking the cuts and signings around the league. Now, there's a little small player called a Mr. Max Crosby. You might have heard of him. He's a defensive end who plays for the Las Vegas Raiders. He's been in the news a little bit for just being an absolute beast. Well, he actually signed, what we thought had signed and got traded to the Ravens for 2 first-round picks, big blockbuster deal. But then, big rewind, U-turn on that trade never went through. Now, I want to touch up on this a little bit because I think there's some funky business going on in the background.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Excuse me. Let's just think about yesterday. So, no, not yesterday. Was it yesterday? Monday, Tuesday. Whenever first day was. I've lost my bearings myself. I'm not even ill. The announcement came, didn't it, that Crosby had signed with the Ravens and it was for 2 first rounders. So, not only is that a humongous trade, it's actually what's really interesting is, how long the Ravens been around now is 30 something years, isn't it? So by all accounts, this is the first time, and this is just what I've heard. I'll be honest, I haven't done my research. Research Cal's not here. But by by all accounts, it's the first time that the Ravens have traded away their first round pick for a player. So not only that, but they've traded two. So you've got the Ravens who potentially need to re-sign Lamar, which seems bizarre because I'm sure it was only a couple of years ago that there was all that drama. But they've got Lamar to lock up. They've got probably a couple of holes. We'll get to other positions from their roster that have moved on a little bit later, but they've then given up this year's first and next year's first, where actually the Ravens typically respect drafting really well. So they've given up potentially two players who could be really, really good. Crosby, but then they haven't.
Yeah.
It's balmy.
Yeah, it's one of them. And when it first kind of came out, like it was in the news of how big the trade was, and like you say, the magnitude of it kind of set waves. The Ravens mean business. They're signing they're the big defensive players. They're going to be the star maker of that defense. And you say like Lamar's contract, there were rumors that they were going to reconstruct his contract to make it a bit easier for him to sign other players as such, which a lot of QBs do. I think a few QBs this year have done it as well. But then another defensive player comes in and throws a bit of a spanner into the works here. And have the Ravens not bit off more than they can chew, but did they see see the pot at the end, like see the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow type thing, went straight for it and didn't look around, and all of a sudden you've got Hendrickson who doesn't re-sign for the Bengals and becomes a free agent, and now as an organisation, who then openly as well to his agent said, won't mind going to Ravens. And then the Ravens here start thinking, well shit, we've just spent 2 first round picks on a guy, when I can get a guy here for a contract. Just a contract. Now, I don't see how Max Crosby can fail. I mean, obviously, I know he's still currently injured, but like, I don't see how this guy is failing his physical, like, workout prior and not getting his contract through. Do you know what I mean? Just something a bit fishy for me there.
Yeah, I mean, like, if he's still injured and he's still got that niggle there, I think ultimately you could fail them. But what probably happens day to day is actually they'll assess where he is at the minute and they'll assess where he could be, and it just won't really. They won't really consider it, and they'll be like, yeah, we'll look after him. He'll heal. It's fine. And then Hendrickson's in the mix. It's like, hang on. We could have got this guy who's not Max Crosby. Let's be real. I don't think. I think he's a very, very good player. But I don't think he's Crosby. Crosby when he's playing at his peak. I don't think he's quite there. But you could get him and then retain your 2 first round picks. And as I just mentioned, the Ravens typically draft well. Their usual process is best player available. That's, they don't normally draft for need, which I think is quite sensible, because you're then avoiding the whole reaching for somebody that you probably don't actually want to draft where you're drafting. And for a team like Ravens that's always in the mix of playoffs, that makes sense. You don't want to draft a second round player with your first round 20th, early 20th pick,
100%.
So it's a bit suspicious, isn't it? It's a bit weird. But there's so many implications with it. There's so many like things that come back from it. Like the Raiders have actually today, I think, if I'm right, just outside of the Titans. I think the Titans had the biggest cap space in the NFL. Forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, and it's just from recollection. There's no notes on this. I'm sure the Titans had the biggest amount of cap space or cap spend available to them, however you want to phrase that. And I think the Ravens have been the number one in terms of total contracts offered. So we're not talking about cap for this year, talking about like general overall contracts offered out. And then the Titans have been second. So the Raiders have been obviously signing people on the, right, we've just got rid of this $30-40 million that we had. And, oh wait, no we haven't.
Yeah.
It's come back.
Yeah, it's one of them, like, so it puts Raiders in a really sticky situation here as to what they're going to do in terms of the Crosby situation. Are they going to try and reconstruct some of the contracts to free some more money up because he's going to be there if not, or has Crosby pulled an absolute blinder here and he becomes a free agent, which I don't see that happening in any way, shape or form because of how much he's worth. Now, I agree with you that I think Crosby's the better player out of the two, but I don't think he's 2 first rounds better than Hendrickson. I believe that what the Ravens have done here is probably the deal of the century. I think it's an absolute blinder. There's not many teams that get given 2 of the top 5 defensive ends in the NFL, and like you can have either or, take your pick, but you can have one for a free agency. Out of free agency, and you're just paying him a chunk, which yes, he's a bit more injury prone. I will admit that. Or you can give us 2 first round pick for Crosby here, and I mean, I bet Crosby's a bit fuming because he'll probably seen potential Super Bowl with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson and everything. And I understand that the Raiders are, signing well and got the first round pick and everything, but still, for me, it's just one of them. I think the Ravens have pulled the deal of the century off, though. I think credit where credit's due. Is absolute business, is this, and they're keeping their first. They're getting their man or their second choice man, and keeping their first round picks, but not losing too much talent. I think it's an absolute steal, is what that is.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting to me, or the thing that like I wonder, is obviously Tyler Linderbaum, probably one of the better centers in the NFL, obviously of Ravens. He became a free agent, and basically the reason he became a free agent is because to franchise tag Linderbaum would have meant that you're paying the average salary of the whole offensive line, not just centers. So that would have put him up there, and I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but it would have put him up there with the top paid lineman in the league. Now, we spoke about it in previous episodes, I think, in previous pods, where it's your left tackles. Your left tackles are the ones that are paid astronomically because they guard that blind side of the quarterback. So your centers, although they're paid well, they don't get near that sort of money. So to tag Linderbaum, you'd be paying him sort of left tackle money, basically, is what we're saying.
But the thing is they didn't tag him. So where does this put now the Ravens with losing their starting center, who they could have tagged and got, given starting lineman money, but then gaining one of the best defensive linemen? I think it's a win-win for the Ravens in general. I think that what they've done is just smart business, as I said before, just smart business for me. But
yeah, I mean, it is, but it makes sense for the Ravens, and they'll play the system how they want to play it. They're a good outfit, and EDC knows what he's doing, doesn't he? So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
That's it. Anyway, let's move on to other news and other trades that's happening around the NFL. A big one, I say a big one. Gino's back home. The team that drafted him back in 2013, I want to say. On my notes, I don't have them down. Either way, Gino was drafted by the Jets. He's gone to various places after this. He's now gone back to the Jets for a QB and a 7th round pick for their 6th. Is that correct? Is that how it works? They've traded. I never understand this properly. Why you trade them the round picks and then a player? Like, it just baffles me at times. Like,
I almost feel like it's an ego thing, just to say like, oh yeah, we got the better pick out of you. But yeah, it's a late round swap, isn't it? And you get Gino back, who he had a rubbish year or a rubbish couple of years, but before that, had a stormer of a few years at the Seahawks, didn't he? And I say the ultimate journeyman. I think that's kind of reserved for like Ryan Fitzpatrick or maybe Kirk Cousins at this rate. But like he's obviously started his career at Jets and he's back there. And I think, you know what? I think it's a smart move, and they don't often happen at the Jets. I think they've got him for next to nothing. I think most of the contract is being upheld, so Jets are going to have very little to pay for Geno, as far as I've read. It's basically like a vet minimum deal, if you like, and a late round pick swap. So it's cost them next to nothing to get someone in who can hold the fort, he can play the sport, and he knows what he's doing, and he's experienced a number of different defenses and offenses. I think it's just a smart move, really, and Aaron Glenn's probably looking for someone who can potentially help not getting fired after year 2, because that was a bit touch and go after year 1, wasn't it? But
yeah, it's a big one for him.
It's a sensible move.
It's a big one for him. Also, DJ Moore. Sorry, go on.
No, go on. That was a latency thing. DJ Moore is going to the Bills.
Second rounder in exchange there for DJ Moore. I think it's a good suit. I think it gives Allen more weapons around him. I think it's I think it's a nice addition there to the Bills. Nothing more really from my side things to say over than I just think it's a nice fit, really, and hopefully. I say hopefully, I don't hope at all because he's a divisional rival. I hope he does really bad, but it could be that little key piece of weapon that they need as such.
I think DJ's always had that potential there, and he's always looked like a quality player. He's just never really lit it up, has he? He's never really been in the right system or the right place at the right time. And when he came out of college, he had a lot of positivity around him, and I don't know. The worry for me is like the Bills, they've had a good few big names playing receiver for them, but there's none that have really like lit the house on fire as such. Probably the biggest name was Diggs, but even he, compared to his years at the Vikings, didn't quite live up to the expectations that he had there. So it'll be an interesting one, and I think it's a great signing for the Bills, I think, but it'll be interesting to see how it pans out, really, for DJ.
That's it. And there's a few more trades that happened around the NFL over the week, and we're not going to touch on them all because we don't have the time to, but what we do have is we have a nice little list on our visuals. So if you are listening on Spotify, you can also watch the video, and if you're not, and you would like to see the wonderful visuals that we do for you week in, week out with all the information on there, you can head over to our YouTube channel, which is All Balls No Filter Podcast on YouTube. And if you want to follow any of our social medias where we do post regular content on there at ABNF Pod across all of your socials, please do us a favour, go head over there, hit us follow, like, and all that jazz, and just get involved with some of the stuff that we're looking at doing. Now, Brad, we've talked a bit about the trades. We're going to talk about free agency now, because free agency has, I think, taken storm this year. There's a lot of, I know there's obviously a lot of players that get moved around every year, but this year, I just felt, for me, there is a lot of big names moving around. A lot of people that we thought would have probably ended their careers at certain clubs moving around. I'm just going to throw a few names out there. We'll then get into chatting about them in particular, but we've spoke about the Ravens signing Trey Hendrickson. Great signing there. But new homes for the likes of Tua, Mike Evans, Malik Willis, Travis Etienne. We've got Alec Pierce, we've got Bradley Chubb, all got new homes. As it stands to you, mate, who stands out here within free agency to nice fit at their new home, and who stands out as a bit of a strange fit to a new home for you?
I think the two that are really good signings, and they're up there with the top of our list. I think, obviously, we spoke quite a bit about him last week and the week before. Obviously, he was the Super Bowl MVP. I think Kenneth Walker to the Chiefs is a really, really good signing for both. They had a stinker of a year last year to the Chiefs, and you might put some of that down to the injury of Mahomes, but actually they weren't having the great year that you'd expect anyway before that. But I think that's a really strong signing for them. Coming off of that injury and having a backfield there that can support Mahomes, to not necessarily have to feel like he has to be Superman every play, which puts him in that line of fire, doesn't it? And I think it's a really, really strong signing. I think one of the big ones that took me by surprise was the Mike Evans signing.
Yeah.
Last year was the first year that he'd not had a 1,000-yard season. And I think he's still got it. Like, he's not a young pup anymore. I mean, he's younger than me, but he's not a young pup anymore from the NFL terms of things and the wide receiver terms. But he's still got it, and he can still get there. He's a big body, and you can put him up there. But I actually think it's a really, really good signing for a Kyle Shanahan offense. I think the 49ers have got all the potential in the world to use that big body receiver. It's kind of like that Julio Jones sort of position, and get him downfield, put him one-on-one, and you trust him to come down with it. And they've not really had this last year or two. Obviously, Debo was kind of that weird hybrid sort of player that had those opportunities, and I think it's a really good signing for the 49ers, and I think it's a nice fresh start for Evans, who could have a really good season there, to be fair.
You got to think though as well, like he didn't get his 1,000-yard season last year because he was injured. A lot of the year he was in and out of injury. A lot of the year, along with a lot of other players from the NFL, and he got said like it was one of the big reasons for it. I personally think that this is probably one of the free agency signings that will happen. Like one of the best free agency signings that will happen across the NFL. I think it's the perfect match for him. As you say, that Kyle Shanahan offense, and having someone of the stature and the size of Mike Evans. I think Mike Evans is a quality receiver, and he brings in that experience in there to coach them younger lads coming through, but at the same time be that safety net of, he's a tall guy. I can just throw a ball anywhere in his area, and he's bringing that ball down, and he's going to bring that kind of that veteran receiver. Watch me come in here and still ball. I'm not coming in here as I'm just going to like a D. Hopkins going to the Ravens, who went in as a bit of a veteran, who played a key part of the offense, but more of a key part off the field, if that makes sense, in the locker room and at training and stuff. Still played a part on the field, but wasn't as impactful as, from a fantasy point of view, let's just say, as what he was elsewhere. But then I think Mike Evans walks into this 49ers team, and I think he's the same player. I don't see his receptions dropping. I don't see his touchdowns dropping. I really don't. I think he's going to walk into his offense and just go, I am Mike Evans. I am your wide receiver one, and I'm going to show you why I'm your wide receiver one. Like I just think, I think he's time to win the Super Bowls now.
Yeah, and I fully agree. I mean, the last couple of years really have been hampered by injuries, haven't they? Like this year was a bad one for him, which I probably agree. It's probably why he didn't get to that 1,000 yards. Sorry, not years. Jesus, 1,000 yards. The season before, though, he had the same thing. He was injured for a while and was only just there. And if you remember, I think the Bucks had to force a play to get him it on like the last game of the season, maybe one of the last few plays of the season, to actually get him over that 1,000-yard line. And that's, you've got to respect that. But this year, he wasn't close, was he? And they can't put him in that position. And it was probably time for a fresh start. But he was one of those players where I thought he'd retire a Buck. But it's business, isn't it, the NFL? And we see it more and more. There's very few players who start and finish with the same team. Very, very few players these days. No. And he's just the next one in the line that doesn't, and he's got all the quality in the world still. I think he's still got the opportunity to get another 1,000-year season out of the 49ers. But I think it'll probably depend on more than just him. I think I always feel like there's question marks in the 49ers. I don't believe in Brock Purdy. I think he's a product of the system. I think you could put a lot of other players in that position. Credit where credit's due. He's Mr. Irrelevant, or was Mr. Irrelevant, and he's had some great success. But I don't think he's that great of a quarterback. I'd say he's bottom half of the starting quarterbacks in the league, but I think he's a product of the system.
Now, I aren't comparing the two players in terms, because there's a massive gap of of talent between these. But you could have said the same thing at Brady at the Patriots to begin with. He didn't come out as an all-star QB. He came out and he became the product of the Patriots system. And I, put Brady in any other system within the NFL, would he have done as well, rather than being within that system? And look, I am Brock Purdy's biggest fan. I think he's a good QB, and I think he's a very underrated QB at times. He started getting a bit cocky recently, which I just don't see him living up to. But at the same time, I see, if you are the product of the system and that system's working well, why change it? And why, we don't need to move anything around it. And I see this Mike Evans going to the Niners a bit like Gronkowski when him and Brady moved on, and they started their new life and they started their new and back end of their careers, and like Gronkowski in particular, who still went over and was still playing that number one tight end role, but just having fun because he knew he could have retired. He knew he can retire now if he wanted to. He's just playing ball for playing ball's sake and having a bit of a laugh and a joke about it, and he still made a massive impact on that field. And I just see Mike Evans doing that. Really, I think he's just going to come out and absolutely storm it. To be quite honest with you, but moving on from Mike Evans, there's two quarterback names on this list that are striking out to me, and one of them in particular, in fact, they both have something to do with your beloved Dolphins. One's your ex-QB and one's your new QB. Two are going to the Falcons and Malik Willis coming to the Dolphins. What's your thoughts on this?
I think the writing was on the wall, like from day one. Like all the strong rumours were that Willis was coming to the Dolphins, and I've got really mixed feelings. I don't have strong feelings, I'll be honest. I just have mixed feelings. We're basically the Green Bay Dolphins at the minute. You've got the GM, or not the GM, sorry, our new GM, obviously, like former, basically assistant GM, if you like. Forget all the titles. Assistant GM at the Packers, and our new head coach was DC at the Packers. And now, basically, what is our new starting quarterback was the backup quarterback at the Packers. And I don't think it's a bad signing. I don't. I'm fine with it. I'm not against it. I'm totally okay with it. My, I guess, pros for it are that you've got two guys who have been around Willis for a couple of years or so and have seen him training day in, day out. They've seen the way he is in the club, in the facility. They've seen that. And then obviously they've seen him on the field. Now, the big question mark that everyone's had over him is, well, his snaps have been limited. I think, I think, again, I'm just going from memory. I'm sure it was like 60-something snaps or whatever it is. Probably more than that. I could be getting that completely wrong, but a very limited number of snaps starting in the NFL. But they were really good snaps. So, we've got a few Green Bay Packers fans and who are friends of ours, and they speak really highly of Willis. And I agree, from what he's done and what he actually has shown in the NFL, he's a really good QB. He's solid. He's got the arm strength. He can run. Basically, the two things that the big criticisms of Tua. No one's ever criticised the timing of Tua, the accuracy of Tua, because they were almost second to none. But the thing is, with those things, is if you can knock someone like Tua off of those timing rhythm plays, he definitely wasn't best at making something happen out of nothing. So that's where you found he'd take the sacks or he'd throw forced balls, which would be picks and things like that. Whereas with Willis, what you've got is the arm strength to fire the ball. And we're not talking about deep shots. And I think that's what the thing that people used to get confused with Tua when people were talking about arm strength. Tua could sling it deep. He could absolutely sling it deep. Some of his biggest plays were to Tua on the deep run. Not to Tua, sorry, to Tyreek on the deep shots. But it was those quick out routes or the quick crossing routes where you needed to absolutely fire that ball in and not float the ball in. And that's where arm strength really comes into it. I think any NFL starting quarterback can throw it deep. It's just how they throw it deep. or on those quick out routes, like, can you fire that ball in low and fast? And that's where he maybe lacked a little bit. But I think Tua can. Sorry, not Tua. I think Malik can fire the ball in. He can get those quick passes, those quick sort of sharp passes off. He can hit the deep ball. We've seen that, but he can run as well, and he can make something happen. Do I think he's a quarterback of the future? I don't know. I'm not saying yes or no. Like, he could be, he couldn't be. There's a very, very limited. There's very limited tape. There's very limited knowledge on that. But I think the contract, it's 3 years. It's basically 68 mil. I think about 2/3 of that is guaranteed. So it's basically a 2-year contract. So
I'm going to say I don't see him. I don't see him there in after 2 years. I think he's a stopgap for a good draft, a good pool of QBs in a draft, rather than just having 1 or 2 QBs in a draft. I think he's a stopgap personally.
Yeah, I think he's a potential high ceiling stopgap. That's the thing. I think, take away the odd player, take away Kyler, take away Aaron Rodgers. In fact, no, keep Aaron Rodgers in there. Malik Willis, wherever he went, was probably going to get the highest contract of any free agent quarterback on the market.
He's probably right there.
He was seen as that guy, wasn't he? That's not necessarily tied to another team. So actually, I think the bit of business with the Dolphins and Malik there is actually good business. Forget the Tua contract, forget the cap, all that sort of stuff. Malik Willis, 3 years, 68 mil, basically a 2-year contract guaranteed for 45 mil. I think that's a really good contract. That's a low-end starter, really, really high-end backup quarterback contract, whereas actually you're getting a starter quarterback this year, and then you've got next year the choice to make. You might draft someone and you might sit them for a while, or you might start them, but you've still got Malik there who's solid. And then year 3, you've got options. Malik Willis might have an absolute crack in 2 years, and actually you've got a really good quarterback there. You've been able to give a couple of years on a good contract while you're shedding off Tua's contract. Or actually, you've got a decent contract for a high-end backup or a low-end starter, if that's the way it goes. And you've got the time to shake off Tua's contract again and potentially sign a quarterback next year where the draft looks potentially a little bit stronger in that area than this year. So, do I hate the signing of Malik Willis? No, actually, I think it's a really good, clever signing. Do I hate it along with the fact that we've just dropped 90-odd million on Tua over 2 years?
Yeah.
Yes and no. I don't dislike Tua. I've shared that a million times over. Do I think he's as bad as he's currently been made out? No. I think he's had a really terrible season. I think he's had terrible moments, but he's also showed moments of being outstanding in the right system. Do I think he's gone to the right place at the Falcons? No, not at all. Stefanski's maybe got the potential to do it. Like, him and Stefanski could do something. But I think a place like the Vikings or even the 49ers as a backup on the league minimum, like anything like that, I think gives Tua a better chance to reignite his career. I don't think Falcons is a place to reignite his career.
I don't know. I think going as a backup somewhere, he's not going to. I think he's got more chance of starting the games at the Falcons, and you got to think of it this way for him: he's getting paid regardless because he can go on that rookie contract wherever he went, and not a lot of teams or not a lot of fits might have been going around. Obviously, Stefanski going to the Falcons and stuff, and I think it's a decent fit. I'm not going to lie. You've got them. You've got the players at the Falcons now, the younger players coming through that are progressing themselves now. I think it's a make or break season for him, and either way he's getting paid, so it makes no difference to him, and he just sees the season out, and then he could go as a league backup to somewhere else afterwards and just float around and be, look like they'd be the likes of just a veteran QB that's just sitting there. He's too good to not be a backup QB somewhere, so it's one of them for me. I think it's a decent fit. I'm not going to lie. I think it's there's worse teams out there he could have gone to. Look, if you asked us this time last year, is Daniel Jones the right QB for the Indianapolis Colts? We'd have all been like, nah. No, this guy is just going there as a bit of a backup, waiting for Richardson to kind of get himself fit and go and be all right. But now look at what he's getting. Obviously, we're going to touch on Daniel Jones in just a second, but it's kind of worked out for him even though he's injured. But moving off of the QBs right quickly, just before we move on throughout the pod, a couple of names that I want to talk about. You've got Bradley Chubb to the Bills for 3 years, which I think is a great signing for the Bills. I think they're just strengthening the right areas. I think Bradley Chubb's a quality player. We also have Romeo Doubs going to the Patriots. Now, the Patriots dropped Diggs. Now, me and you text each other about this in our All Balls No Filter Discord about this. And you said you could kind of see this coming, but we just didn't mention it on the pod. You kind of saw it. You had like an inkling it were going to come. I'm a Patriots fan. I didn't see this coming. I thought with the leadership of how Diggs has been on that sideline in the locker room, and I know the media gives a lot of stuff out there, but he's been the forefront of that kind of core and just showing how mature he is. I know he's got a lot of legal stuff going on in the background at the moment, but tell me an NFL player that hasn't. But like, he's that maturity there. I thought he was going to be quite a core player, and yes, he weren't the wide receiver one that we kind of brought him in as. Is Romeo Doubs? No. Does Romeo Doubs signing him, like, does this count out any form of an AJ Brown push, which we were kind of favourite again? Yes. I just don't see. I see it as a bit of a backwards. We're getting rid of a wide receiver 1.5 because I don't see him as a wide receiver 2, Stefan Diggs, and he's not a wide receiver 1. Getting rid of a 1.5 for an out and out wide receiver 2. The Patriots had never really had out and out wide receiver 1s on their team that are big names, yet we're still not signing these big names, and it's just, as a Patriots fan, it's a little bit frustrating for me. I just don't see it.
I just think the thing with Steph, I think you can almost separate the Diggs and the Doubs thing, sort of, to be honest, because I think, you heard the whole things years ago, didn't you, about, I think it was when he was at was he at the Bills or the Vikings? I can't remember, and it was like, which player would you least like to date your sister? And literally every single player was like, Diggs. No chance. No chance. No way. No way. Not Diggs. And Diggs was like, oh, I'm a nice guy. And like trying to convince him. And it's like, for me, that just says a lot, doesn't it? Like, if you don't want the guy anywhere near your sister, like, what sort of teammate is he? And I think that from the stuff that we see in the media about him and the stuff we see about the issues he has outside the NFL, whether it's relationships, whether it's the law or anything, like, they're not the players you want in your organization, which is why I feel like he's just he's a stopgap. Whereas Doubs is like he's a solid player, like a really solid player, and he can do what Diggs has done this year for the Patriots. I don't think Diggs has been like a standout player, but he's just.
Nor do I. But has he got that maturity? He's got that experience and that mature. Like, I don't know. I don't want to rant on about how it is, because I don't know. I just don't see it being. It makes no sense for me in this in the business. I think we could have traded for players, and there's players that have openly kind of said they want to come to us. And obviously, I understand that the AJ Brown trade is probably way out of way because it's going to be so expensive, but that could have been the business that makes Vrabel. Vrabel's had a year 1 coaching cycle now with the Patriots. He's no longer the new guy. That could have been the bit of off-season business that were like, right, I'm here to make I'm here for business now. I'm here to do this now. I'm here to put something on this. We can get a good trade here. We're getting for a few years. He wants to come to us. He wants to come here and do this. Like, and yeah, I don't know. I just think it could have been that bit of business that what it were. But I hope to God in 12 months' time I'm eating my words and Doubs at an absolute flyer of a season. But hey ho. Right, touching on a couple of big name signings, mate, that have happened over the past couple of days. Daniel Jones. I want to talk to you about Daniel Jones right quickly. So, Daniel Jones just signed a 2-year, $88 million contract with the Colts. Now, I might make myself look a bit stupid here. Right, I've got a question about this. Why did the Colts tag him a week ago when they were going to give him a contract? Why not just give him this contract last week?
So, my understanding is basically, obviously, the tag allows negotiation and it allows the opportunity for him to speak to other people. However, it guarantees him a contract in some aspects. So if they tag him, he gets a contract based on, I think if I remember rightly, it was a transition tag, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it's a top 10 average salary. Now, if I'm right, so researcher Cal did put something in our notes earlier on actually about this, that the contract he's then ended up with is 16th in the league. So, excuse me. So it's actually below when you work it out across the 2 years. So the tag would have given him a 1-year contract based on a top 10 on the transition. So he would have needed another team to match that and see him worth a top 10 contract. Whereas the contract he's got is basically 16th in the league, which is mad when you think it's worth about 40 odd mil.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult one, really, with Daniel Jones, who I think, is he worth a top 16 contract? I don't think so. He had one very good season at the Giants, and then that's when he got paid like mad, and then had terrible seasons. And then last season, he started really well. He had a solid first 6 or 7 games, shit the bed, and then obviously got injured. So it's hard to say how that season would have gone. So does he deserve, for 2 years, top 16 paid quarterback in the league? I don't think so. So was it a good bit of business by the Colts to transition tag him? Yes, because it put other teams off. Has Daniel Jones got a decent contract? Yes, he has. Did the Colts have the opportunity to get a better quarterback for a better contract? Don't know.
I don't know, because there's a chance that he doesn't start the start of the season. So he's getting paid $44 million for his first year and probably not stepping foot on the field for 6 months of that. And that blows my mind that they've managed to get that around. Look, the whole thing about you saying like he shit the bed and all this stuff, I fully agree with you, because it's that playing for a contract mentality. You see it when interim managers or coaches step in and the team automatically starts playing like they've never played before for the first 5 games. The manager then gets a contract to take over the team, and then the team shit the bed and the shit. A QB comes in, or a player comes in who's come off of injury, or he went to free agency and moved somewhere to mid-season, storms it, gets paid, shits the bed. Like, you see this all the time, and as soon as they get comfortable, I think it's a fair contract for what he's worth, and I think he's 16th in the league at the moment, but I think going forward that'll change because of the climate at the moment and how it's going up and up and up at the contracts. But look, it's just one of them. I don't think he'll have a season like he has done before. I don't think he sees out until Christmas this year, because I think his injury will really affect how mobile he is, and realistically what they could do elsewhere, and tank for another QB maybe, I don't know, across the line on that. But that's my thoughts on that. I mean, I like the guy. He's all right, and he's shown me a little bit of a difference to what he was at the Giants. But hey ho, I still don't think he's what he was made out to be. Another person that has just re-signed, and that is Aaron Jones, who is staying at the Vikings. 1-year contract, I think it is, just a 1-year extension. He's staying at the Vikings now. Just a solid fit, knows the system. I think it was just one of them. They're keeping the veteran running back on board, and you've got a little dump off valve there. Not really hitting your cap too much, so happy days on that. So, but anything from yourself regarding the free agency, the signings, or the trades that we've missed, or anything like that before we get into our next feature of the evening?
No, nothing we've missed. I think. Well, I say nothing we've missed. Nothing we want to talk about. It's just. I do love this week, and I've enjoyed the chaos a little bit. Like the Crosby thing has just been absolute chaos, and I've loved that. Been absolutely brilliant. For me, it's now like the thing I love about this week is how much this impacts the draft. And we'll have draft previews coming up. Obviously, it's over a month away, but we'll have draft previews coming up, I'm sure. I don't think either of us, I know Zach, obviously, you're probably a little bit more into the college game than I am, but I don't think either of us would be claimed to be experts. Yeah. So it's. I just like the fact that it's kind of painting a picture as to where these teams are directing in the draft and what they're kind of looking for, and then in the draft you get all the freaking curveballs that you'd expect. So it's just, I love this time of year. And I'm not an expert in it, but I love it. I love it because it's just like, oh, look at this chaos and look at what this is causing to the league and the teams, and it just turns everything upside down.
It amazes me how much money's in NFL, and you don't get transfers like you do in soccer, football, where you buy a player, you trade players, you trade them, and people just move from team to team a lot of the time for for next to nothing as such. And I love that. I think soccer's ruined by how much money's involved with transferring players over, and I love the fact of how you can trade people, and the draft in particular is fantastic. But yeah, like I say, we will get up on all this, guys. As well, let us know who's been your favourite signing so far, your favourite trade, your favourite free agent kind of movement. Let us know in the comments, whether that's on Spotify, Apple, or on YouTube. Let us know across there, or just fly over to his socials as well. Comment on one of his videos. Let us know what you think are your signings. If your team's involved with the signing, I'm sure Keelan, by the way, is going to get in the comments, because he's been, Hendricks and this, Hendricks and that. Like, we want him here. Like, I think he's going to be super stoked about that, and not even to give away his first round pick. So just let us know what your views are on that, guys, as well. Okay, right, moving on. We're taking the jet back over to the UK. We're talking rugby league. It's time for I Can't Speyk. Get him off, ref. Rugby league is back. He's here. Now, we went through a few of the headlines and scores last week, and look, I might have got a bit ahead of myself on certain things, and I'll hold my hands up, right? And we're gonna get to that, because if you are watching on the see the visuals, you can see the last score that's on the list, and we're gonna touch on that, and it's painful. But this week of rugby, I managed to watch a few of the games over the weekend, but like I said, I weren't very well, and I just caught up on the highlights of a few things. Now, Wigan will not lose a game this year if they stay fit. They are the best team in the Super League by a country mile. They're unbelievably good this year. They just look flawless, and it's painful to say, but they just keep, week after week, just keep coming back and just doing everything right. And it looks like they're having so much fun out there. And that's how you win games, by scoring tries, winning, and having fun. You can see they're having fun. You see they're just messing about with the ball and just playing with the food. And it's, I'm not going to touch too much on that Toulouse game, but obviously Toulouse started out the year very, very strong, and now back-to-back losses now they've had. But playing Wigan this week is a tough ask, and it makes the first game of the season against us look a bit better for us, when they keep putting these points on the board. But it's one of them.
Yeah,
for me.
It does. Yeah, it's they just look dominant. They look absolutely dominant. But I mean, who would have guessed 16-36 for a team coming up from the Championship? It's a good score. It's a respectable score, especially with some of the scores that we're going to put up. And then, Warrington, they're having a great year so far, and York took them to 30-38. There's two teams there we spoke about a good few times who are putting up some really good scores. And Bradford, like all three teams. It's nuts. Like the Super League this year it is exciting.
It's so good. It's so good.
Not so much for Huddersfield, not so much for Hull. I'd say not so much for Castleford this year, but I'm trying not to be biased. Like not this year, this week, done it again. Trying not to be for those listeners who listen week in, week out. We do it often. Say year, we mean week. I'm trying not to be biased, but like Huddersfield are the worst team in the league again.
Yeah.
And Hull are down there. I've seen quite a lot on X and Twitter basically saying like the only team worse than us are Huddersfield from Hull fans, and I probably agree. They're not great. They're not great at all.
No.
You know, Wakefield have had a rough year to start with after last year, which was pretty promising, but to then only beat them 14-10, it just shows that quality there. And I think the Cass game and the Cass and Leeds game was frustrating actually, because I don't want to be biased and say, oh, the score doesn't do it justice, because actually I think the score does it exactly the justice it deserves. But I don't think it was. I don't think the score reflects a full team effort. I think the score reflects Leeds exposing a weak area of a team. You know, and that edge of ours was just catastrophic against Leeds. There's so many memes going around and like videos on X of it. It's just poor.
I disagree with you. I think the score is, how can I put this? Leeds deserved to score 100 past us because we were absolutely terrible. We would have not completed a set without, if we're still there now. It was one of the worst games of rugby league from Castleford I've watched in probably 2 seasons at least. I thought we looked like we couldn't be arsed. We were tired after 5. I remember saying, because I went to my mum's house to watch it. She made a Sunday dinner, bless her, because we weren't feeling very well. So I went to mum's to watch it, and said within the first 5 minutes, we're blowing out already. We are blowing already, and we're 5 minutes into the game. The first kick-off, no one's putting the net. It's simple rugby league. This is rugby league 101. When you get taught this, playing under 5s, put a name on the ball. Put a name on the ball.
So I only watched the second half. So the first, so I worked this. I don't normally work weekends. Just not to get into that. I don't normally work weekends. I worked this weekend, and I listened to the first half or most of it on my drive home, and then I think I sent you a picture. Actually, I was like, right, I'm not feeling this weekend working. I'm going to get in the hot tub and I'm going to watch it from the hot tub. Yeah. I had a right nice relaxing watch of that second half, and I didn't see the first half. I just listened to it on the radio, but they didn't paint that picture. That it was more that that right edge of ours was just shocking.
It was shit.
And
it was awful, and it weren't just that aside. The first half was the best half for Cass. The second half was the worst half for Cass. I'm not talking from a pundit side of thing. I'm talking from a fan of the team here. We was shocking, and we just couldn't be. Look, it's hard, like you say. You don't want to be biased because we try to like give a fair view on everything here. But you know, I'm a supporter of teams, and I support one of these teams, and that team is Castleford. And honest to God, I just think it would just amateur, and it were a really bad light. Going from the week before, and yes, we played Huddersfield the week before, but how much fun we was having with that ball the week before, not one person other than Maps wanted to be on that field. Genuinely didn't want to be on that field. It was awful to watch.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? And
yeah,
I think that's probably the score's probably a reflection of the first few games of the season. We've had 2 good games, 2 poor games, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But I think the league as a whole is, despite what people said about the 14 team league, the real hesitation was the quality, but actually I think the teams that they were worried about have actually got the quality. It's
yeah. So we've got three teams here that have been putting good games in. You've got like the three teams that have come up, should I say? You've got Bradford, you've got Toulouse, and you've got York. Out of them three teams at this moment, who's the better team and who's finishing above the other three? Because they were the three. Like, is the quality good enough from the Championship to step up into the Super League? And honestly, they're showing it's fucking far better at this moment in time. So which of the three teams for me, for you, sorry, that will be top 1, 2, and 3 in that set?
I would go York top, Toulouse second, and Bradford third. But it's close between second and third for me. Really close.
See, I was going to go Toulouse, York, Bradford up until this week, because I think Toulouse have played the first 2 weeks really exciting. But I don't know if they've had their numbers shown now. If teams are picking up if you kind of maintain that halfback, you can win the game. That fullback, sorry, you can win the game. But
yeah, I think York have got some quality there, and I think as an organisation as well, I think they've got a quality there. I don't know if you've seen it actually. You've been quite ill, but just this last, this last 24 hours or so, York have announced a new partnership with New York Rugby League. So York Knights Rugby League Football Club have now created, and I don't know the full intricacies, I've only just seen it today, the New York Knights Rugby League. So they've got the shared badge, they've got the shared branding, just slight difference. It says New York, not York. So I'm just wondering whether that's a reignited sort of USA League. I don't know if you remember, I don't know if it was pre-COVID, actually. There was that USA League, wasn't there? And there's a York team. Or whether that's like the next Toronto Wolfpack coming through. I don't know. But York as a club have done a lot right over the last 5-6 years, haven't they? They've done a lot right. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do with this. And it's fantastic branding. Fantastic. But
I think
it'll be interesting.
I think it's good to see them doing that, because, like you say, there was that USA League that was trying to start out, and if more teams do this, you've now got the rugby going over to Vegas, which is then going to shine a bit of light over, because you've got the NRL and the Super League kind of going over there. So if they can get a USA game of 3 games in a day, like a bit like a Magic Weekend, but over in States, I think that'd be pretty cool. Of all 3 leagues, you've got the market there for it, you've got the money there for it. I think it's the branding and the financial. I think it's great, man. I think more teams need to do it, and I'm all for this. And I think it's obviously York and New York just go hand in hand, and it makes sense to do so. Hull KR, though, a team that did go to Vegas, right? Hull KR beating Huddersfield this weekend. Do you think that's a kick up arse that they needed to kind of get back into this winning ways, because they've not looked right this year yet, have they, as reigning champions?
I think it's something that was probably right time, right place for them. 32-6 against Huddersfield and the reigning champions is considering some of the scores we've seen, it's not a great score, actually. I think Huddersfield have been terrible. It's basically the same score. I can't remember the exact score, but it's basically the same score, if not a worse score, than what Cass put by them. I don't think it says much for Hull KR, but it's definitely a much needed win. They needed it, and it's come at the right time. So, maybe they've now got the World Club Challenge, and they've got the Vegas game behind them. They might start making a run, but I don't think it tells us much at this point.
No, it's a rough time to be a Huddersfield fan. No one likes to see teams in that position where you're the team. You're the team that nobody wants to lose and gives you your first win, because then what does that say for yourself? It's one of them. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, they're the Super League scores are on the screen right now. We're not going to go through them all. We've gone through a few of the big games there. The Super League scores are on there. Like I say, if you want to see them, head over to our YouTube or Spotify. Anything else from this week, Brad, in the world of rugby league before we move on to one of our favourite features?
No, I'm looking forward to looking at other balls.
Oh, and now you say it. We're going to move in to one of our favourite features here, which is all other balls. Brad, will you do me a favour and just let the guys know, what is all other balls?
So it's where we look at the world of sport. So we look at all of the sports that we've not touched upon. So obviously we've NFL podcast, but we now have our rugby league feature as well. So we're going to look at other sports around the globe. And I believe, Zach, you're going to start us off with the world of football, as in soccer ball.
Yes, soccer ball indeed. Just to trigger a few of the old football fans out there. This week, right, I believe, and please don't quote me on this, I think it was a Champions League game, right? Spurs were playing, and Spurs are not in a great place at this moment in time, and the Spurs manager decided to let out the reserve goalkeeper, a man named Antonin Kinski. Okay, Antonin Kinski. So they decided to give him a shot, put him in goal. What's the worst that can happen? They've not been fantastic so far this year. Well, what is the worst that can happen? 17 minutes in, they are 3-0 down. Two of the goals coming from the goalkeeper, Mr. Kinski, slipping in his own box while trying to clear the ball. 17 minutes in, the goalkeeper gets substituted. They don't let him finish the game. I believe it finished like 5-2 or 5-something. This, I don't think it's ever happened, the goalkeeper coming off, not due to injury, but just coming off 70. This is such a morale kick. It's just not. It's not good for this guy's career. And I saw David De Gea had posted something out on Instagram, basically saying like, "Look, it's the hardest position to play as goalkeeper. You have a lonely position. Please don't get behind this guy. Let's get him back up. You know, he's a professional at the end of the day." But if you watch the highlights, I watched the highlights this morning on it. It's not great. It's not a great look. I'm not gonna lie to you.
It's one of those weird positions, like, it's kind of like a kicker in the NFL where you've got one job, mate. You've got one job.
Yep.
However, I think it's a little bit different in terms of your job is made much harder. You know, if there's a lot of players around and the ball's back and forth and stuff like that, like, your job's really difficult, fair play. But you've got one job, and that's not to fucking slip and stay on your feet and save the ball, like save the goal or stop the ball, however you want to phrase it. 3 goals in 17 minutes is rough. That's really rough.
It is. It weren't great.
That's a professional goalkeeper.
Yes. It weren't great, but that's my all other balls of this week. I believe we're going to touch on briefly on the opening race for our all the balls number 2. Brad, what do you reckon?
We are. So we're going to visit the world of the F1. So obviously this week, did it again. This week was the opening Grand Prix of the 2026 Formula One season. And we won't go into all the details. You need to revisit our previous pods to touch on that, to touch on those balls.
Yes.
But it's a big season because it's new regulations, it's new chassis, it's new teams, it's new drivers. It's basically like every 3 to 4 years, the most exciting year of changes because it kind of puts new teams into the forefront. You know, we've had domination over the last 3-4 years of Red Bull and McLaren. But this weekend saw Mercedes coming to the forefront as kind of expected. So to not go too into heavy detail, but in the Formula One, you've got teams who build like the car and run the organization and things and, you know, hire the drivers and stuff like that. And then you've got what they call the PU providers, so the power unit providers, which are basically engines. Mercedes are one of the teams that have both of their own. You've got teams such as Ferrari that have got their own. You've got teams then like McLaren who run the Mercedes engine, but obviously they run their own team, etc., etc. And it's been a massive, massive change this year, but Mercedes basically dominated from start to finish, and they got the 1-2 at the end of the race. But for me, what's interesting, what I found really quite exciting, two things actually, sort of different ends of the spectrum, is that Ferrari were back there. It was basically a strategy error from Ferrari that either cost them the win or at least cost them to be competing for the win.
Yeah. Shock, by the way.
Yeah, shocker. So for those not into Formula One, this is just an ongoing thing that Ferrari, despite the brand and the name, have terrible strategic decisions. And this year, actually, yeah. So Charles Leclerc, who drives for Ferrari, and George Russell, who drives for Mercedes, were back and forth, alternating first and second for a good while. And it was actually really exciting. It's not often over the last 3 or 4 years that you get constant swapping over at first and second in a Formula One race. So obviously the new regulations are working in some respect, and I think obviously it takes time for the drivers to figure out the new regulations. But then you had a safety car, which basically brings all the pack together, and that's what moves the strategy. And Mercedes went in and they pitted, they got fresh tyres, and Ferrari stayed out. And long and short of it is that's what cost Ferrari the race. If they'd have pitted at the right time, they'd have had the same strategy as Mercedes and would have competing for the first two. And it could have been a 1-2 Ferrari. It could have been a 1-2-3-4 split between the two teams. It would have been unknown, really, how that would have ended, but it would have been really exciting. But it didn't quite work out. Ferrari gained a lot in those last few laps, and I think it worked out. If they'd have had another 5 to 10 laps, they could have taken over Mercedes. So it's quite exciting for the future of the season for me, but it was just a typical Ferrari shit show on strategy that cost them another race, which is a shame, really. For
me, there's two things that I take away. Obviously, it's the new year of all the new regulations, but what bugs me is teams get told about the regulations so they can put the research and development into it. So the teams with the money, like Mercedes knew at the start of last year they were going to have a really shit season last year, but then this year they were going to smash it. Red Bull had the exact same thing. 2020, end of 2021, when Max won the Abu Dhabi GP, like they knew the season afterwards that they were going to storm it. McLaren then knew that they were going to storm it. It kind of gives it away. We knew last year that Mercedes were going to be good. You just got to put the right drivers into it. Yeah, they've put them in. For me, I'd be like, no, the regulations come out on the day after the last race of the season. You've got pre-season to sort your cars out. I think it just makes it a bit more fun to how good your development team actually is, rather than knowing 2 years in advance, so you got 2 years to prep your car for it. I get there's a lot of money and there's a lot of stuff involved with it, but I think from a spectator point of view, we knew what was coming. And I don't know, I think it's been a bit more exciting from that.
I think to a point though, because like there's two sides to that. So like I get your point and I agree with it completely. But everyone expected Aston Martin. They had Adrian Newey, who is arguably the best developer of cars ever in the Formula One. He's gone to Aston Martin, but actually their PU is dog shit, and now they're suffering massively. So they've arguably got one of the best designers of cars working with Honda, who have provided them an absolutely terrible engine, so it's not working. However, on the flip side of that, I get what you're saying in terms of, if they just had a few months to design and do this. Yeah, I agree. But actually with Formula One, and if you're not into Formula One, which I know you are, Zach, so I'm not sort of lecturing you, but if you're not into Formula One, when you're talking about aero design and the actual engineering involved in Formula One, it's basically the level below space engineering, aeronautical design. So, like, you've got aerospace and then you've got Formula One when you're talking about engineering. So, to design basically a rocket ship that drives on the road in 3 months, it's just not going to happen, is it?
They've got one job, design it, you know. Like, for me, I know that, and look, I say that very naive. I say that very naively, and I understand that they only get a certain amount of hours in the air, in that the aerodynamics chambers and things like in the wind tunnels and things. I get that, and I understand that. I'm just thinking, how funny would it be? All the cars set off, and 3 of them finished because they've all broke down. Look at Oscar Piastri, by the way, who was tipped to be one of the world champions last year, who was fighting Lando Norris, by the way, for that drivers' world championship last year. Didn't get round on the opening lap. Not in the race, in the warm-up lap, because he spun it out and crashed on his home race. Fine, that type of stuff for me is hilarious. But the F1 opening weekend, we've had a few comments actually when we spoke about F1 previously, like, can you talk more on F1? Now the F1 season's starting, obviously we've got a Can't Speyk with the rugby league season, and we are touching on the NFL as we would do. But do you guys want to hear, do you want us to kind of feature F1 as one of our All the Balls every week? If so, let us know in the comments below. We love F1, we can talk F1. If you guys like it as well, we'd rather make sure that you guys are getting the content and the discussion that you want to hear. But that's our All of the Balls for the week. We're going to move on to our final segment of this week, and it's our recurring. Is it? Yeah, our recurring segment for a Mr. Cal, Research Cal's conundrum that he brings in, week out. And last year's conundrum is on the screen now. Which was,
you just said it. You just said last year's. What is wrong with us? Yes, what's wrong with us?
I've got an excuse, right? I've got an excuse. I've been up since 3:30 for work this morning, and I'm not very well. So I've got an excuse, right? That's fine. I can use that for this week and this week only. So last week, Carl's conundrum was, who was the highest drafted NFL kicker? Who was the highest drafted kicker in NFL history? And it was a Charlie Gogolak. Gogolak? Charlie Gogolak. He was drafted 6th overall in 1966 by the Washington Redskins. So that is one that only researcher Carl would know. So yeah, if you did get that, congratulations. I don't actually think many people got into our DMs about that one. But if you don't know as well, when we do these, we'll get them onto all of the socials. Get in touch with us there, comment, drop us a message and all that jazz. Carl's conundrum for this week is Josh Allen broke the record for the most career rushing touchdowns for a quarterback in 2025. But whose record did he break? So Josh Allen broke the record for the most career rushing touchdowns for a quarterback in 2025. But whose record did he break? Let us know in the comments. Drop us a message. What do you think? And who do you think he broke the record for? Let us know on there. The conundrum will get posted out onto all our socials as well. Now, last week, Brad, we asked our lovely listeners for some off-season feedback or suggestions from them in terms of if there's anybody that they would like to see on the pod. I want to put that out again one more time. If you know of anybody that they don't have to create content or be on other podcasts, but it's always a bonus if so. Just general sports fans within the sports that we kind of enjoy and talk about. If you think that they'd be good fit to come and feature on the pod, get in touch with us with a name or tell them to get in touch with us. We'd love to get people on throughout this off season and chat some absolute balls to other people as well. But yeah, that is the show done today. Brad, anything from yourself before we sign off?
No, it's been a pleasure. And to say, I know you've been ill and world's smallest violin and stuff, but you've done well, mate. You've done well. We're proud. Thanks. You've got through it.
Thank you. I feel the love. I feel the love. But yeah, go follow all of the socials at ABNF Pod across all your socials. YouTube, just search All Balls No Filter Podcast. Go listen, watch, subscribe, like, comment, love, do whatever you want to do. Share it. Just listen. Love you lots. We'll see you next week, and I promise I'll be more energetic. Peace.